Air, generally, all of the platform fighters are sitting on. I say all because there's been a few that have came out pretty lumped up together very quickly within the past like 2 years, right? So earlier this year, we had the release of MultiVersus. A little before that, we had Nickelodeon All Stars Brawl 2. And a full year ago, we had the full Steam launch. I believe it's also on mobile or was on mobile. The full launch of a free-to-play battle royale, a free-to-play Smash clone, platform fighter, whatever you guys want to call them, called Flash Party. And we have numbers for all of those games. Along with the game we're listening to music from, Rivals of Aether, which is significantly older and has always been a little more niche. So I want to categorically say that I think out of all these games that I've got to play, because I haven't played Flash Party yet, I'll probably give it a shot and find out if it's good. Out of all the games on this list that I've tried, I like Rivals of Aether the most. I think Rivals of Aether feels the smoothest. It has a really nice combo system. The fact that it has no block button doesn't feel like a deterrent to the game. It doesn't feel like it creates like a rock scissors format instead of a rock paper scissors format, because that's like a big thing I say about Brawlhalla and MultiVersus is they feel like they have rock and scissors and no fucking paper, right? And you send rock and you're like, well, did you learn how to deal with rock? There's no paper. Hope you figured it out. And so we're gonna look at these game numbers. We're gonna first talk about Brawlhalla. Brawlhalla is probably the biggest platform fighter outside of Smash. Let's be honest, even if you don't like it, because personally I'm not a huge fan of Brawlhalla, but it is categorically the biggest and most consistent of all of the platform fighters outside of Smash on Steam charts, at least, right? Steam charts and SteamDB. When looking at this, we can see that 26 minutes ago, there was 13,000, not 1,300, 13,000 players on the game. It's got tons of good crossovers, a bunch of characters with unique weapons or crossovers of weapons so the game feels easy enough to get into. And there's a decent amount of community support, right? Not only community support, but developer support. It doesn't feel as if the game is ever left high and dry and that there's not going to be something happening when it comes to a new season or more content to be added. We see some dips, we see some valleys, right? The smallest percentage we see within the past 2 years, right? If we go to August 2022, is 11% of a drop off, right? 11% drop off, and it's slowly, as you see, kind of just moving its way back up to 13,000. When in August of 2022, it was at 17,000. That's actually pretty good, right? It's lost 4,000 players, but as you see, there's peaks and valleys here because the last 30 days there was 16,000, which is not that far off from a year ago. Less than 1,000 players difference. Next, we'll look at MultiVersus, and we can't even look at all of 2023 because at some point during 2023 they shut the game down. We have to look at May forward. May, there was 5,700 players, right? With a peak players of 114,000, right? That's a pretty big peak players. But in June, there was a peak players of 53,000, but the average players was 14,000, right? So there was a gain of average players, but a decrease in peak players. And as we see now, the last 30 days, which is July, we have an average players of 3,500 and a peak players of 13,000. That is a huge drop off. As a matter of fact, that's an all-time drop off bigger than the player base of Brawlhalla has ever been. Right, you see, Brawlhalla's had a smaller overall player base that's existed on the ecosystem of Steam, but it's never had a drop off as big as MultiVersus. This isn't a good sign for a game that's only been out 3 months, right? I don't know if this can be easily addressed with patches or if it's more just an overarching problem with the core mechanics and design of the game, and character balance and content won't fix that. I also think, personally, the monetization of the game is a little scummy and very intrusive. Like, it tries its very best to make you think, oh yes, you really need to buy this. Yes, you must buy this, right? Me personally, I take accountability for my spending. I know that I'm poor and broke because of me. I'm never going to blame a game for that. But I could see how some people don't like how intrusive the monetization feels, even if they can completely ignore it and avoid it. The problem is, if you want all the characters, you can't really completely ignore it or avoid it unless you want to put in a giant time-seek grind to unlock all the characters. Next, we'll look at Robbers of Aether. Like I said, I'm going to come right out and say it. Robbers of Aether, once again, is the smallest of all the games that's like been out as long as it has. But I think that it's always been kind of niche. As you see, its all-time peak was only 3,000 players, and it's sitting at a sixth of that. I think a sixth of that. Or a fifth of that? A sixth of that. Something like that, right? A fifth or a sixth. It's sitting between that amount. And its overall drop-offs haven't been very big, except for this one January 2024 of 24%. If we look at the one for MultiVersus, boom, we had a 70% drop-off and a 15% drop-off concurrently, like back-to-back. That's probably not a good thing. That's not a good thing, if I'm honest, right? Like, these drop-offs, these peaks and valleys are way smaller, and I think the reason why that's the case is because the game's always inherently been more niche. It has characters people don't really give a shit about. It's a very competitive first feeling style of game. It doesn't feel as casually focused as games like Brawlhalla and MultiVersus do. I don't think that MultiVersus has figured out how to make the game competitively and casually appealing enough that people will stick around like Brawlhalla. Now, we can look at Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl, but this is actually just really sad. I don't think this is even comparable. Like, I do think that MultiVersus is cooked and it's going down a road where it could easily be unrepairable and become a game that people just forget about and it falls off and disappears or becomes extremely niche, just like Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl. But I don't really want to currently say that that's what's happening. And the reason why is because this game had one core issue, and it's that they basically robbed their original player base. If you bought Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl 1, you were basically beta testing Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 2, and you paid like $40 to do it. Right? So this turned a lot of people off. A lot of people just didn't buy the game. Even though I've heard good things about Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl 2, I also haven't bought it because of the fact that I really felt like I was shit out of my money. Like I was given a pile of shit when it came to Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl 1. And I'm not willing to shovel shit a second time. It's just not something that I feel like doing. I've gotten too much older. I don't have as much time on my hands, and I think a lot of gamers are feeling the same way now. Gaming used to be a young person's hobby, but it's slowly more and more becoming the hobby of people late 20s to 40s because we grew up with video games and we want to keep that magic and wonder of playing video games as our hobby of choice. And these games kind of don't feel like they respect our time and money. Some people would say the same about Flash Party. I don't know what the fuck is going on with this game. I'm not sure. I haven't played it yet. I've heard it like I'm not sure what I'm looking at here. But I can see now, like right now, that it doesn't seem like there's ever been a large player base since the game first launched. Like, almost 2 years ago now. And it's been almost all fall off since then. I have no knowledge of what's making this game feel unjustified in the time spent, because it's free to play at the start. It's not really completely free to play because, of course, you have to buy heroes or buy characters. So because of that, there is some incentive to make you want to spend money in their skins and a full working item shop. And maybe the gameplay variety wasn't as good as the amount of time people had to put in to gain the items. And that could be the same type of trend we see for something that has a far larger IP. MultiVersus may not be specifically developed by Warner Brothers, but it is a Warner Brothers IP. And I think if you have access to a Warner Brothers IP, or the entirety of the Warner Brothers catalog, as it were, you should probably make sure you're doing well with it so that you don't lose that license. Player First Games has to find a good balance between making a game that's casually and competitively enjoyable and creating a system in which the characters all feel like they're playing like versions of themselves and in a way that's appealing enough for casual audiences. right? Competitive players are fine with functions. Batman is a function, okay? Wonder Woman is a function. Harley Quinn is a function. Scooby, function. I don't think Scooby's in the game. Velma, Shaggy, functions, right? Tom and Jerry, sick-ass function. But they don't need to specifically be made that way for us. They need to be made in a casually appealing way for people who are going to stick around for a game long term because it's fun and has character. Right? Especially with something as powerful as IP as Warner Brothers. I'm surprised to see that this game is not doing better than Brawlhalla. I projected that it would like jack a lot of Brawlhalla's numbers and become a more, at least when it came to PC and console, a more popular version of Brawlhalla, right? Both kind of floaty feeling, almost unintuitive, no offense to both games, looking floaty platform fighters with only a parry. One has a parry, one has no defensive option outside of just dodging, right? Robbers of Aether, Flash Party, and Nickelodeon's All-Stars Brawl are all very different, right? This game is very melee feeling, with no block button, but a parry that gives you full combos, and when mastered, makes every character have a solid defensive option. Flash Party has a block button or a shield, akin to Super Smash Bros., and the same thing with Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl 2. These games were very much made with a more competitive audience in mind, and maybe that is why they're not doing so hot. I want to believe in all platform fighters. I hope that all these platform fighters can find their core audience and expand from there. As Brawlhalla's done, it's found its core audience, and it doesn't particularly expand, but it also doesn't particularly contract very far. And I think this is probably the most healthy platform fighter outside of the Smash games, the actual Super Smash Bros. Games, and it's been that way for a really long time. I hope MultiVersus, Robbers of Aether 2, Flash Party, and Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl will also find their strides. Do you guys think that MultiVersus is cooked? Do you think MultiVersus is going to just go by the wayside and become completely forgotten as time goes on? Does it have a chance to make itself a game that's more appealing and isn't sitting at a third of the numbers of something with significantly less IP staying power? Tell me about it in the comment section down below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel where we talk about gaming news, gaming concepts. We just yap. I'm a big time yapper. And if you want more of that, subscribe to the channel. This has been Beanie Thuggish talking about the state of non-Smash platform fighters, asking the question if MultiVersus is cooked, signing out and saying